Hello, everyone, and welcome to Financially Fearless, a financial literacy podcast created by young adults for young adults. In this podcast, we're going to delve into the insight of many seasoned adults who specialize in home ownership, credit, and professional development, offering a lot of comprehensive step-by-step guides to their success and hopefully to ours and your success. I'm your co-host, James Sargent.
And I'm your host, Jalea Allen, and today we'll be finishing our conversation on credit and how it affects us. I can definitely relate to that because I know my food is starting to rack up on that credit card. But something that I noticed is it takes a certain type of mindset or some type of resilience in order to get through a situation like that, where it's like you have to stop these habits that you have continuously already been doing. And so, what was your process of getting through those habits that you had and trying to stop those habits to make better habits?
I think, honestly, I think this came out of a fight or flight kind of a scenario because I was in a position where I needed a car and my car had broken down. And when I went to apply for the auto loan, I didn't realize how much I had impacted my credit by missing payments, by taking on, having high credit card balances. I didn't realize what the effect had been on my credit. And when I went to apply for a car, I was with my mom, and the person, we had this really cute, I think it was a Nissan Sentra or something like that. And the person sat down, we went through my finances, and it was a used car. It wasn't very expensive, but when he ran my credit, he was like, okay. He's like, I can approve you at a 19% interest rate. And the look of horror on my mom's face, and you could tell he was embarrassed to tell me like that amount, and he really wasn't that interested in working with me. Like, his tone totally changed. And that was my like aha moment that, wow, okay, I've done something really bad, because I don't think I'm going to be able to get a car. And um after that, my mom like wouldn't talk to me. She told my dad, and my dad flipped his lid on me. My dad, like, just, that was a conversation I'll never forget in all of my life. Like, how upset he was with me. And it was because they had told me to be careful with credit, that credit was not good. But they had never given me the tools to actually do something with it to help me avoid those mistakes. And again, I was an adult at the time. I can't completely blame my parents, but um, that was one of those moments that was really awful, because I never like to disappoint my parents. And I felt like I had really disappointed them. And so that was a moment that I was like, okay, we got to make change. And also, I had at the time, my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, he had excellent credit, and he was like, okay, don't worry, we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna get you a car. He's like, I'll co-sign on your loan. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you're gonna co-sign on my loan? We're dating. I don't know, like, if that's such a great idea. And he was like, no, I see a future with you, so I'm gonna help you, because once we get married, you can't be bringing bad credit into our marriage. I want to buy a house. And so he actually helped me to apply for, he signed on as a co-signer for my car loan. And that filled me with a lot of responsibility for his credit, because now his credit was dependent on me making my payments on time. So it was a series of things like that that led to me to really start to make that change, to realize, okay, something's got to give here, because I'm not doing it right. Now, the problem is, that was back in 20, like, had to have been 2008, maybe 2008 that happened. And if we look at now, at the high interest rate environment that we're in and the cost of everything right now, it was awful then when I made mistakes, but almost now it feels as though there's no room for error. And so that's why podcasts like this are so important. That's why educational bloggers and influencers are so important in this space because we've got to relay that that you have to act now. If you have debt, get out of debt. If you are doing anything that's hurting your credit, get in the know about what that is. That way you can start to make changes now. So that way, when the environment hopefully calms down and you can take advantage of it, you'll be in the position to do so. Because one missed payment on your credit, of whether it's a credit card or a car loan, one missed payment reported to the credit bureaus will hurt you for 7 years. So that's a long time. And if in that time frame the market settles down and you find that you're in a position where you would like to take advantage of like a lower interest rate than it's at right now, it may be difficult if you don't have your credit prepared to do so. So that's kind of why I recommend that people really start to take action now, because you want to set yourself up for success in the coming years. And the only way to do that is to look at your financial picture and figure out what changes that you need to make.
And piggybacking off what you said about interest rates, because that's something that's like getting very big in this generation, is because some of us, we don't even know what interest rates are. And like, what are the good ones? What are the ones to look out for? Sometimes we just see, okay, 18%, that looks pretty good. Or like 20%. I mean, I don't know what is the average. So, I mean, I'm just picking a number. Like, any number looks pretty good as long as it's not 100%. But like,
Yeah,
what is
right.
the numbers that you think are good numbers, and what are the bad numbers? Like, could you explain more about that?
Yeah. So it depends based on the type of credit product that you're going to get. So I'd say an average credit card interest rate right now is in the low 20s, 20, 21, even the 19, 18% interest rate. That's a pretty decent credit card interest rate in this environment. And that's one that you'll see fairly often. Now, when it comes to car loans, because it's a bigger purchase that you're making, right? A good credit score will qualify you for an interest rate right now of about 6%, maybe 6-7%. But back in 2008, I think it was. Did I say 2008 when I was making that car purchase? The average interest rate at the time for a good credit on a used car was about 4%. And so the average interest rate for a good credit was 4%, and I had qualified for 19%. That's the difference. So if you look at, I invite anybody to do the math on a car loan. I think my car loan wasn't more than like $20,000 at 4%. The interest was just a few $1,000s, but at 19%, it was like tens of thousands of dollars in interest that I would have been paying. So that's why it's so important to know the interest rate. And before you go to make a big purchase, look at what the average interest rate is for a good credit score. Look at because usually when they're advertising for cars, if you notice on TV, they give you the best interest rate for the best possible credit score. So if you see like, I don't know what a car commercials. If you look at a car commercial, usually the interest rate that it says on the television is if you have really great credit. That's the interest rate that you'll qualify for. They don't tell you what it is if you have poor credit. And then for a home loan, so when my husband and I got our home, it was a couple years ago, and the interest rate had dropped to 2.4%. And that was the lowest it had been, like, since we had seen people looking for homes, that's the lowest that it had ever been. And then now a home interest rate is about 7 to 8%. That's a difference of tens of thousands to potentially $100,000 in the lifetime of your loan, because you're paying that loan for 30 years. Typically, you would be signing on for a home loan for 30 years. So it's a big difference. And that's why we always tell you, you want to have the best possible credit score to qualify for the best possible interest rate, because the difference over time could be thousands to tens of thousands to 100,000, depending on the product that you're using.
So
Does
if
that
I
make
was
it any easier? Like, tell me honestly, because I talk about credit often and I want to make sure that I'm explaining it as well as I possibly can. So if you ever need clarification on what I'm saying here, feel free to interrupt and ask.
Of
Oh no, I
course.
definitely understand exactly what you're saying. It makes it a lot easier when you talk about it. Like since we already talked about some of the other topics, it makes it easier to relate to it. And especially when you gave like the like what it was before in like 2008 being like 3%, I believe, which is what you said, and
4%,
then
yeah.
4%, and then it going up to like 9%. That's like a huge difference right there. And then just thinking that that's what it was from before and now. It's just thinking like that's a huge amount of money that we have to pay now that wasn't there before.
And yeah, so and then it's not just that, the cost of cars versus now versus what they were back then is so different. So not only are you paying a higher interest rate, the cost of the product that you're purchasing is higher than it was before. So everything is just a little bit more expensive than it was even just a decade ago, you know? So that's why we always say pay attention to your credit. There at this point in time, there's not a lot of room for error. And so that's why this information is so important for your audience that they start to look at their credit, that they start to research best credit practices, to research what's a good credit score, and to really start to monitor their credit.
For someone who's like since it's like when you're saying that there's no wiggle room or little to none, for somebody who is like in the hole already and they're trying to get out of it, like what is a good time period of how long you would say it would take them to get out if they did everything right?
Mm-hmm. It very that's a hard thing. It depends is usually the answer to that question because it depends on the severity of the errors that they made. Like for example, I mentioned earlier a missed payment's going to impact your credit for about 7 years. Now that's if it's been reported to the credit bureaus, and so if you see that on your credit report, it's going to impact your credit for 7 years. Typically, the further away in the date that it is. So if it would happen a couple years ago, but you've really been active in making your payments on time every single month, it's going to affect you less, but it's still going to show there. And so that is something that is just you're going to have to give it time to fall off your credit report. But if it's something like debt, like you're carrying a lot of debt on a credit card and you really start to pay it down, you'll start to see your credit score climbing very fast because that's something that can easily be changed once you start to show that positive credit usage and showing that you have a little bit of restraint when using credit and that you can pay it down and that you can keep it down and that you can make small charges and pay them off every single month. You'll see your credit really start to move fast. But it's when you have those negative marks like a payment history that it's going to take a little bit more time. It's going to happen a little bit more slowly, but it's doable. So it doesn't, even though I've said there's no wiggle room, that doesn't mean that you give up on it. That just means that, okay, moving forward, I got to make some changes and that it is what it is. It's not a big deal. You'll get through it. We all get through it. But that's why we're here. That's why we have these resources. That's why we want to be a resource for you because we want to help you. The other cool thing is that Experian, previously it was your lenders reported information to the credit bureaus about you. And now Experian introduced things like Experian Boost, which allows you to add your own positive payment history for services like your utility services, like your telecom, so your phone services, your streaming services. We added streaming during the pandemic because a lot of people were streaming
I
and
got
they were paying for
Netflix.
streaming. Yeah, see? So we wanted you to get credit for for paying your bills on time every single month. And so we're always introducing new aspects to Experian Boost that allow consumers to positively impact their credit score on their own. So they don't just have to wait for their lender to report their positive payment history to the bureau. So that gives you that little bit of extra control over your credit, right? So that's another great free feature that we offer through Experian that allows consumers to add that information to their credit reports and potentially boost their credit scores. So we see an average credit score boost of about 13 points, which could be pretty significant for somebody. So I highly recommend looking into that as well.
I know one question I had when I was I still kind of have it now, but I feel like I maybe got an answer for it. So when I had my Experian app and I would see that I would be doing everything right, I always paid my credit card on time, but there was always times where I would still see my credit score go down a little just because of the payment history. Is that something that people should have to or feel like they should really have to worry about, or is that something that's natural?
Would you find that it would go down and then it would like kind of even back out? Or I'm just curious. So
I
would you
believe it would
find
even
that,
out.
yeah, so it would go down because you paid it off maybe? Is that what
Yeah,
that is? Or
cause I think with Experian, it kind of went based on it kind of filtered it. So I guess it would check my account at a certain period of time before I paid it off. And then when I actually paid it off by the date of when it needed to pay off, then it would go back up.
yeah, so okay, that makes sense. So usually what there's such a thing as a statement date and your due date, right? Your statement date is typically before your due date because that's when the lender essentially closes its books for the month and reports to the bureaus what that amount that you owe to them is. And you haven't made your payment yet for that month, so you haven't had a chance to pay down that balance at all. So then we'll get that amount and we'll say, okay, well, she used a little bit more of her credit this month, so that could impact her a little bit negatively. But then you went ahead a week later and made that payment and that reduces the balance. And so if you paid it off and then that gets reported to the bureaus the next month, then you'll see that start to go up again. So you'll see that fluctuation. It's really based on the information that's in your credit score. Was it a significant amount that it went up or down?
It wasn't a lot. It was just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, you will find it's your credit score it will change depending on the day that you check it, because it is calculated at the moment that you check your credit score. So a credit score is an algorithm that's calculated at that time. It doesn't stay stagnant over like a month. It's actually calculated anytime I log into my app. It's calculating my score and giving it to me right there based on information that's in my credit report right then and there. So you may just not have seen that payment reflected because they had already closed the books and sent that amount off to the bureaus, but you'll see it typically the next month when they report again.
Okay, so another question I had was when you're opening an account, so if you're starting your first account, would you suggest you open it on your own or would you suggest you co-sign with somebody?
If you're looking at opening an account like a credit card, then I would try to do it on my own first and see, can you qualify for a card? Sometimes you may qualify for a secured credit card, and that means that you have to put up a little bit of collateral in order to access a credit an amount, credit limit. I guess that's sorry, that's the word I was looking for. So you have to put up a little bit of collateral to access a credit limit, and that credit limit will typically be about the same amount as the collateral. So if you need to put down 500 to open the credit card, your limit will likely be 500, and that collateral will just be used if you don't make your payment. But I always recommend that you use that credit card just like you would any regular credit card. Make your payment every month. Don't charge too much. And then over time, that positive use of that card the lender then could potentially say, okay, you know what? They're ready for an unsecured credit card, which would be a regular credit card. And you would graduate into that. Now, if you have a parent that's willing to add you as an authorized user to a credit card, if they have great credit and they want you to piggyback off their credit, that's another good way to help to start to build your credit. But you want to make sure that it's going to be reported to the credit bureaus, and you want to make sure that any charges that you make, you have a system in place for how those are going to be paid down. And then also, you just want to make sure that you're working with somebody who's responsible with their credit. So that way, you can really start off on the right foot. And then if you're going to get a loan, I recommend that if you do get a cosigner, that you know all of the terms of the loan and you understand the importance of making those payments on time and not over leveraging yourself, because you have to know that when you have a cosigner, missing a payment could then have it defaulted to that person, and you could really significantly impact your cosigner's credit. So that asking somebody to be a cosigner is something that you need to take very seriously, and you need to have very honest conversations with each other. And it's not something that you should just feel as though they're your safety net, because you should be the responsible owner of that loan and make sure that you're making those payments on time, and that person is just lending you their credit to help you to get a better interest rate.
And actually something that my dad did for me was he had put me down as a co-signer on a card, but I don't think he ever gave me the credit card. He used it himself and built the credit for me until I was able to get my own credit card. So
Oh, wow.
that's another way to do it as well.
Mm-hmm. That's really nice. Yeah. And so he seems to have good financial management and credit
Mhm.
habits. And so he realized, like, okay, maybe she's a little young and she may go crazy with this. So I'm just going to help you by doing it this way. That could be a great option, as long as you both were in the know about the fact that he was opening a credit card for you and that you knew that he was doing it to help you to build your credit and you see the effects of it. Absolutely. That could be a wonderful way.
And then, like, do you think you can also get into? Because I know some people, they may think I have a credit limit, so I can spend to this limit. Like, could you go more into about that as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mentioned that payment history is a significant factor that could impact your credit score. That's the number one factor impacting your credit score. But credit utilization is the second biggest factor that impacts your credit score. And so how you use credit is very important, meaning if you have a credit limit available, that you don't charge it to the max, because then you would be utilizing all of your credit, and that looks bad to future lenders and it looks bad in the algorithm model. We always want to see people using no more than 30%. Now, 30% is a number that you may hear thrown around a lot. That's the highest amount you want to use of your credit score. I'm sorry, of your credit card limit. But if you can keep it below 10% or pay it off every single month, that would be even better, because that's just showing that you can manage your credit well, that you're not using credit as a crutch, that that you are able to make charges and pay them off, and that you're responsible with your credit card. So that's really important. Now, I know some people that um, they want to get those rewards points, those miles, and so they will pay like their child care, which can be $1,000 a month charge on their credit card, but they have the cash to pay it back. They're just doing it to qualify for more points. So there are people that do that. And if they're going to do that, you just have to have a system so that you know, okay, I made that big charge, but I got to pay that off. So that way I can not carry a high balance on my credit card while still getting to enjoy the perks of having a credit card. So it's all about having a system in place that allows you to manage your cards, but definitely keeping that utilization down is so important. Second biggest factor in your credit score: always make small charges and pay them off, or if you're carrying a balance, reduce it as much as you possibly can.
And something that I heard about from a lot of people, like for people who are not necessarily credit card people, but still want to build their credit, I heard that there's like a type of debit card that allows you to build your credit. Do you happen to know anything about that?
Yes. So Experian actually just launched the Experian Smart Money digital checking account and debit card. And what's cool about this debit card is that it embeds Experian Boost, which allows you to access that tool that I mentioned earlier, the Experian Boost tool, and get credit for the bills that you pay on time every single month, like your utilities, your streaming, your telephone, um, your rent in some instances. And we're adding more bills every single month to that list. But how you use that debit card, you make your payments, and then With Boost being included in that, it'll just take those payments that are reported in your checking account and use it for Experian Boost to help to build and boost your credit score. So it's a really great tool that you should look into. It's a free tool, again, available through Experian.
Okay, thank you. And this is I guess our last question, but for a student who may not have a consistent source of income, would you suggest that they get a credit card, or would you suggest that they do the alternate route with what you said?
Yeah. If you don't have a consistent source of income, what you can do is, if you have a credit card already, don't use it while you don't have income coming in, because you don't want to put yourself in a position where you have a lot of debt. So you can have a credit card, but just don't use it when you don't have income. Yeah, it's going to take discipline. Now, if you don't have an income and you don't have a credit card, don't apply for a credit card, because that's not going to make any sense right now, unless you plan on applying for that card and putting it on ice. But even then, know thyself, right? Know yourself when you're going to apply for a card. Are you doing it for the right reasons? Are you doing it to build credit, or are you doing it because you want to have a little something to be able to go out on the weekends, to buy a new outfit? So you have to know yourself, because you're still going to owe even if you don't have a source of income coming in. So I recommend, if you don't have a job and you don't have a credit card, think seriously about why you want a credit card. Maybe this would be a good time to explore those other options like Experian Boost if you are paying for a streaming service or a phone service or a utility service. This could be a good time to look into that option and to really build a credit profile with that. Now, that's available through Experian only. So you would have to go to experian.com/boost to access that. And then if you don't have a consistent form of income right now, this may be a good time to start asking a parent if they could add you as an authorized user. So that way you could piggyback off of their credit card usage if they are responsible with it.
Okay. So is there anything like that off the top of your head that you would like to also tell people?
I recommend, use the tools that I mentioned earlier. Go to Experian.com to look at our Ask Experian blog, which has a wide range of articles on just about everything finance. Even if you have a question about credit, if you just want to say, why should I build my credit? Type in Google, why should I build my credit, Experian, and I promise you'll get 14 articles about why you should build your credit. What's the best credit score? Add Experian to that and you will see a list of articles about credit scores, but so if you don't want to go to Experian.com and navigate our Ask Experian blog, you can just put a question in there, put Experian next to it, and I promise you, we probably have an article about it available for you. I recommend going to Experian.com to access our free credit monitoring tool. Again, you get that free credit score and your Experian credit report monthly. So it's a fantastic tool to help you to monitor your credit. The other good thing about monitoring your credit is it's really good for fraud protection. And so if you have that app on your phone and you get a notification that somebody's opened an account that you didn't open yourself, then that's a good reminder, like, oh, let me log in and see where that account came from. And it could be a sign of fraud. So that's something that's really important. The other thing about notifications that just triggered in my mind with credit monitoring is that the app that we offer gives you notifications of like one good behavior that's helping your credit score, or, ooh, this change in your credit profile, you may want to go and check it. So I love those notifications that I get, because even for me, I'm like, oh, my credit score went up. Why? Let me go check, And so it's a really great tool. I couldn't recommend it enough. I make everybody in my family get it because it's free. And so I'm like, hey, if you're going to ask me questions about credit, you better have that Experian app on your phone so that we can talk about it. Because I just think it's a fantastic tool. And then check out our Experian Boost feature. Check out Experian Go for building credit. It's a fantastic tool to help you build credit. Check out our Smart Money checking account and debit card if you are wanting to learn how to use a checking account and build credit at the same time as well. So we're really trying to be a fantastic tool for consumers to really focus on their financial health and improve their financial health and improve their overall credit as well.
Thank you, Miss Roman. We really appreciate all the little tips that you gave. This should really help impact people's lives and really just teach them how exactly they can really navigate the world. Because a lot of people don't talk about this. Like, a lot of people are either scared, or
Mhm.
maybe your parents will tell you don't do this, but they don't tell you why. And a lot of times, if you don't tell me why, I'm like, I can be like, either I'm not going to do it or I am. I mean, I don't have a reason not to do it as far as I know,
Mhm.
except you said no. So a lot of these things are not really out there to really tell you about what actually is this and why is it here. What are the things we need to do to build it up for ourselves?
Yeah. Thank you for having me, and thank you for putting this resource together for your peers. It's so important. I think it's almost always more easily absorbed when you're getting information from your peers, right? Like, to your point, your parents could tell you till they're blue in the face, don't touch credit, but that doesn't mean that you're never going to touch credit. Case in point, right here, I am an example of that. So sometimes it's easier to digest information from your peers.
So if you were your age again, what advice would you give yourself?
Ooh, the
And this can be
advice,
in anything.
yeah, the advice that I would give myself, financially is, you know, make sure you do your research before you get involved with anything, credit. That if I had just known, you don't know what you don't know. So if I had just known how things worked, I could have saved myself many years of a headache. But so really important to do your research. And then I was graduating from college with a journalism degree in a field that felt at the time like it was in a bit of chaos, and they were trying to find themselves in the digital world, and it scared me. But one thing that I've learned over my lifetime is skills are often transferable, and it's really important to network and talk to people. Like, I wouldn't have the job that I have today if I didn't talk to people at my work. And so I recommend for any college students that are listening, be open to talking to people, be curious in life, be curious about the places that you're working at, be curious about how things work. Because I think that is one thing that's really helped me in my lifetime, is to be curious, to ask questions, to talk to different people, to network, and to build out my circle. That way I could, it opened up opportunities that I never imagined were possible. And have faith in yourself, I think, is also very important. That's something that I have to work on every single day. But have faith in yourself and believe in yourself, and you'll be surprised at how far you could go.
All right. Well, thank you again, Mrs. Rowan, for your joining us today and sharing your knowledge. Again, it's been a pleasure to have you and have someone from Experian their expertise. And if you're listening and would like to connect with us and continue the conversation, don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us on Instagram at Moneyversity LLC, and you can also look out for our Discord in the future. Thank you all for stopping by and joining in. Well, have a good day.